All right, gang, back here for segment number 7. I'm going to start things off by playing a little video here.
20 seconds and counting. T-minus 15 seconds. Guidance is internal. 12, 11, 10, 9. Ignition sequence starts. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. All engine running. We have a liftoff, 32 minutes past the hour. Liftoff on Apollo 11. Tower clear.
All right. What does segment number 7, talking about panic under pressure, have to do with the Apollo 11 launch? The reality is that if you go back, you can feel that moment. You can kind of feel the energy of that countdown. It raises everything up. It kind of brings things to a point. And I think about Buzz Aldrin in that, moment where he's strapped into a rocket headed to the moon. No one's ever been there, and he had to be the first to do something. This was truly a test of technology, of human ability, and it was the edge of something so important and so beautiful, which is landing on the moon. I mean, there isn't anything cooler than that. But what I want you guys to know is that Buzz took on that mission knowing that it had a 60% chance of success. I don't think any of us would lock into a rocket, let alone leave our house in our car, if we had a 60% chance of success. That's why Buzz was perfect for the job. He understood that he could perform under pressure, he had practiced, and he trusted the people around him and what they were doing. Trust is a huge component when it comes to managing pressure and panic and stress. And when we think about racing, one of the number one things that I work with athletes, whether it's talking to them before a race, creating a race strategy, or even just talking about racing in of itself, there is this ability that some people have to separate themselves from the outcome. The ability to not just look and say, I want a PR today, I want to do X, Y, and Z. It's about being able to look at that outcome and say, it's possible. But it's not my sole focus. It's everything around it that I know that if I get these things right, the outcome will likely be what I want it to be. So let's bring this together. I really had thought about this after talking with a number of athletes after they had a really good race. They came to me and said, now I don't know how it's going to feel to go out and underperform. And they had viewed that after a PR, that next race, they felt like they had to perform that same way again. When the reality is that may not be remotely possible, may not be the right course, the right weather, all of those things. A PR requires kind of, good to great conditions. And what I want you guys to remember is that for Buzz Aldrin to land on the moon, it was about the mission to not just land on the moon, because he had to get back from the moon. So just getting there was not goal number one. It was about getting there, putting a flag on the moon, doing some research, and then getting back. We'll come back to this story in just a little bit. But when we talk about panic and we talk about pressure, I'm going to talk about two things. There's this idea and state of having, and this idea and state of being. When we are in a state of having, we achieve and look at our goals and what we accomplish and say, oh, I own this. This is my precious little goal. This is my little PR. I have it to hold it. And we almost go on defense every time we go race because we're afraid that someone's going to take that from us as if they ever could. But it's that illogical part of our brain that's trying to protect us. And that's the state of having. When we move into a state of being, we're looking at everything else from saying, a PR or any of those things, it's possible. I have accomplished that in the past, but how do I get better? How do I move forward? It's not looking backwards, It's not looking backwards and trying to say, oh man, I wish I could PR again, because those things are behind you. You have to look at how do I move forward and how do I get better? So when we think about that prediction machine that sits on top of our shoulders, our great brain, I think of three things when it comes to managing panic and pressure. And I think the first one is set reasonable expectations. There is more to racing than just simply looking at it as a test. You are not just looking at it as you either win or lose. If that was the only way we ever looked at things, you would win the day or lose the day or whatever it is. Like, that's just a really illogical way. We try to get better every single day. We don't live or die every single day. And what I mean by that is that you need to be able to look at your racing and say, what are the things that I can work on today? Because this course may not be ripe for a PR, or I'm still in training. Can you work on pacing? Can you work on your strategy? Or even something as simple as trying to kick from a little bit further out. The second thing, I just said it, not every race is a test. This is a tough one for a lot of people to get over because they think that every opportunity is an opportunity to PR. And just like we had talked about, strategy, a kick, trying something new, those are some really important pieces. But think about the SAT or the ACT or any test that you have to take. You take practice tests before you take the big test. And if we consider the big test to be a state championship or a national level performance, you need to take the mindset that every race leading up to that is not a test, so to speak, as the only test, but it is an opportunity to test different strategies and skills. Test taking in and of itself is a skill, and being able to understand how do I answer the most questions, et cetera, et cetera. I'm not teaching you guys how to take tests well. What I am trying to teach you is how to test yourself well and how to assess yourself and self-assess, which is our download this week. Before I get to point number 3, the download for this week is a mid-season checkpoint. And the reason I think the mid-season checkpoint is valuable is that right now you still have the chance to shift and move some things that is actually going to improve your outcomes, your PRs, all of those things. So what I want you guys to do, click that download. There's a quick survey that's going to help me make even better material for you guys. It is 4 very simple questions. And once you guys hit that download, go in there. We're going to look at what are the things that you've done well that have helped you achieve what you've achieved so far. The second question is, what are the areas of growth? The big thing here is that when you identify those areas of growth, what I want you to do is flip that sheet over. And for each area of growth, I want you to write down how you are going to achieve that growth. Most people stop when they just say, these are the areas that I want to grow. And they think that that's going to move them forward. But the reality is you're only halfway there. Heck, you may only be 25% of the way there. To define the action and then follow through with the action is what is going to get you results. It's key. So, point number 3 here. Be okay with losing. I talk about the idea of surrendering the outcome. I think when I say surrender, a lot of people go, so give up, just be ambivalent and completely complacent. It's not at all what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that when you surrender that the outcome is the only thing that you're after, that is when things get really, really hard. I think back to a book that I've been reading lately called The Twin Thieves. Great book. Highly recommend anybody that's interested in kind of the mental sports performance side of things to pick it up. It's got some great stories, some great analogies. And inside there, they talk about Jack Nicklaus. And his big quote was, "The reason I win so much is that I'm okay with losing." He's okay with losing. Doesn't mean he likes it. No one likes losing. But he's okay with the fact that he might lose. And because of that, it frees him up to think about what's happening right in front of him. If you think about the game of golf, it is one of the most mentally rigorous sports, despite how it may look from the outside, because you have to stay so engaged for so long, and so much can go wrong. The wind, how you hit the ball, did you choose the right club, etc., etc. So when you think about that, he's able to win so much because he's okay with losing, which frees him up to focus on the hit and what is right in front of him, getting that ball to the next small little place right? It might take 3 shots or 4 shots to get to the pin. And so each one of those is a new opportunity that if he's only worried about how he's doing at hole 18 or how everybody else is doing around him, he's losing the ability to focus on what's right in front of him. So I told you guys I would come back, and with point number 3, talking about being okay with losing, we're going to talk about panic and pressure with our buddy Buzz Aldrin here. When Buzz Aldrin walked back in from the spacewalk on the moon, he turned around and he's got that big bulky suit on, and he heard something hit the ground, and he looked down and he saw a little round circuit, and it had broken off from the panel. And in that moment, he had to make a choice that if he had not been present and he allowed panic and all of these other things to set in, imagine how you would feel being literally on the moon and you find out that the circuit that you need to turn on to be able to launch off the moon and head back to Earth. That's what broke for Buzz Aldrin. And in that moment, he didn't panic, and he chose that he just needed to focus on what was directly in front of him. Because he was so focused on his mission, he was able to think outside the box and think critically and solve the problem without going into complete and utter panic and chaos. Reached into his pocket and he took out a felt tip pen. Now, unlike this pen that's mostly made out of plastic and rubber, it was an all metal pen. There's actually a really cool photo. I linked it into the blog, as well as a whole story told by Buzz. And he took it and he shoved it into the hole that was left by the circuit that he broke out of there, and he shifted it into the on position, completing the circuit, allowing the team to lift off and head back home. Had Buzz not been able to be focused, be in the moment, if you think about Jack Nicklaus being able to focus on the pin, the shot that's right in front of him, it could have gone really, really bad. And he didn't let the existential thought of, oh, I could die here right now because of that, because I turned around to close a door. That is not only how tight it was in there, but also the ability for him to think critically was super key, because his mind was free and able to just handle what was happening right in front of him. You only fail when you stop trying to improve. And it also means that you have the willingness to try something new, because Buzz knew that sticking that pen in there, that could totally fail. It could also have electrocuted him, started a fire, and it's an oxygen-rich environment. Things could have gone really, really bad. That could have been a really bad idea. But the reality is that he went for it, he tried it, and it worked. And that is what you have to do when you think about surrendering the outcome, is be willing to try something new, a new strategy, maybe going out a little bit easier, or trying to progress your race, or maybe the course is way better for you to get out really hard, settle, and then try to run a fast 3rd mile. Being willing to try those things and testing your limits, or even pushing beyond what you have set for yourself as your comfort zone. All of those things mean that you have to create the opportunity to be okay with the failure that may happen. Once again, you have to be okay with losing. It doesn't mean that you have to like it. All right. We are getting close on the memory card here. Last thing I wanted to get out here for you guys when it comes to that download is just making sure that you figure out ways to integrate that into your day-to-day. When it comes to your training, when it comes to all of the things around it, you need to be able to pat yourself on the back and recognize what you guys did well. And that's what's so key, that if you guys look back and say, hey, I made improvements, I'm able to kick a little bit further out, I trust myself a little bit more in my training, I'm able to be more calm at the start line, what do you want to work on now? Because you've accomplished some things, and you can keep accomplishing more as long as you take time to recognize both what you've done well and the areas that you want to improve. I hope this was helpful. I hope a new storytelling way and story inside this episode was fun and engaging for you guys. I'll see you guys next week for segment number 8. See ya.